Hey, entrepreneurs, are you trying to make bigger profits in your small business? If you're like most of us business owners, increasing your profitability is always on your mind. And you're probably looking for a few ways to grow your revenue while growing your company. Well, you found a podcast that helps with the ideas that help you do just that. I'm Marcia Reiner. I'm a business growth strategist, and I've helped tons of small business owners to establish and implement a tangible plan that guarantees increased profitability, guide your growth, and plans for a future exit. Because building a highly profitable, sale ready business creates a win win scenario. That's more money today and a windfall when it's time to let go, whenever you decide that is. And today I want to share strategies that I've learned with you on Profit with a Plan podcast. But before we get started, I have a super powerful training that I need you to check out. This is what I do with my clients when we first start one-on-one to help boost their profits. So it's called the 30-Day Profit Booster. And this is where I'll show you how you can boost your profits 45% in just 30 days, simply by following a 3-step method that doesn't require that you're chasing more customers. This quick and easy profit boosting strategy can be done without spending more money on marketing, hiring additional staff, or working longer hours. Go check out my webinar where I explain it all at 30dayprofitbooster.com. All right, so I'm excited to have my guest today here for us, Craig Andrews. Craig is the principal ally and founder of a marketing agency called Allies for Me, using a proven method that mimics the stages of courtship. Allies for Me helps companies find strangers and convert them into high-paying customers. He uses an 8-stage customer value journey, which is part of his framework that leads someone through the first contact all the way through to post-purchase. He adds value at each and every stage of the journey. And a first-time offer, which we're calling an FTO, is like a coffee date. It's a low commitment, very low risk way to test the relationship. And when you do this well, your prospect starts to ask you questions to help you close the deal. This relational framework builds trust faster, it drives revenue faster, and it strengthens the customer loyalty after purchase. Craig and the Allies for Me team are consummate students of psychology and use these insights to supercharge the sales engine for his clients. Craig, welcome to Profit with a Plan podcast. I'm so excited to have you today.
Marcy, it's a delight. I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I always like to throw out the first question and figure out, because, we all have our journeys as to how we got into our business, but what drew you to helping people with their offers and their client engagement?
Oh, because I had struggled so much myself. I am a horrible, horrible, horrible salesperson. I completely suck at sales, and it was impacting my marriage, as a matter of fact. And because things were tough at work, so things were tough at home, and I tried all these different sales trainings, and I would get on the call, and I would read the scripts I was told to read. I always felt a little dirty when I was doing that. Icky, yeah. And I didn't do it well, and nobody bought from me. And so I thought, instead of selling, let me create an environment where people want to buy. And that's what we did. And just that little pivot, I call it a little pivot. It took a little time to figure out, but that little pivot has been amazing. And believe it or not, it did improve my marriage. So not only did it improve things at work, but my wife and I, it just really helped us. It got rid of a whole bunch of disagreements there. It's been really amazing.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, life, we think that we're siloed in our business, right? And everything I do here during 8 to 5, or as one of my earlier bosses had told me, oh, you're only going to work half day, 7 to 7, right? But it always, our life, our business, our entrepreneurship always tends to trickle out through the rest of our life. So I can easily see how a hard time at work would lead to a hard time at home as well. So I'm glad you found this out. So, you're not the only one out there, I'm sure. Listeners, you're not the only one out there that makes sales feel icky, right? Or if you're doing it the way the pros tell you to go and do it. So I love this idea that you're doing it a different way, right? And I'd love for you to really dive into that and tell us, first of all, how does it make the customer feel better? Let's start with that one. How does it make the customer feel better if we're doing it different?
Well, so you mentioned how it's like a coffee date. And if we go with a bad way of dating, is you walk into a bar, you see somebody cute on the other side of the bar, and you say, "Hey, you're kind of cute. Can I get your number? Better yet, let's just get married." And you're like, "No, I would never do that. That's inappropriate." I'm like, "Yeah, it is inappropriate. So why do you do it in your high ticket sales? Because
Mm.
high ticket sales. Hi, how do you do? I'm Craig. Would you like to buy my $10,000 program? It'll be really good. I promise." And that's just asking too much. And so in the same way we go on coffee dates, we go on coffee dates because we hope for something bigger. We hope for something better. But we have questions, we have reservations. So we drive to the coffee date separately, don't even necessarily know where each other lives yet. And according to what the ladies tell me, about 15 minutes into the date, they have a girlfriend that's calling in saying, "Hey, do you need rescue?" And
You're spot on with that. That is absolutely true.
yeah, and I get it because you know what? There's some creepy people out there. And so, we do that in dating to remove the risk. But in the high ticket sales, we forget that lesson that we learned in our personal life. And so we help companies put together these offers. We call them an irresistible first time offer. And there's a few things that go into them. We can talk about that. But the high level concept is you want to take the commitment risk out, you want to take the financial risk out. You want to lay an offer in front of somebody that is just so obvious that if they are at all qualified, if they at all want what you do, they will say yes to it. By the way, it's great at filtering out tire kickers, time wasters. I even had one person kind of come through the process once that, we start off the call and he's like, "Oh, I'm the man. I have this venture. It's fully funded. I'm in control. I'm the captain of my own ship," and all this sort of stuff. And we get to the end of the call and I say, "Well, hey, we'll do this little mini project with 5 deliverables. And it's going to cost this," which was a stupidly cheap price. And when I say stupid, let me just go ahead and let's remove the mystery. Our first time offers, if we're doing B2B, are almost always $497.
Perfect.
Right. And this guy's response was, "Would you mind putting that in an email? Because I need to go talk to somebody to see if we can do this." I'm like, "Oh, so you're not the man. You're not in charge. You're not funded." And it was funny. I thought about that one. I was like, I think this guy's putting together a business plan to go pitch for funding. And he was trying to get a free marketing plan out of me under the guise of being a prospect.
Interesting. So you just hit on like a dozen different wow factors in your little conversation right there. But let's go back to something that, we everybody was thinking, right? When you're talking about this irresistible, crazy offer that, I mean, you shouldn't even have to blink twice on. Like, even in the husband and wife world, you've got a I can spend X without asking for permission kind of price, right? And 497 or under $500, I don't have to ask permission to spend that kind of money, price limit. So how did you come up with that one? Because that's an interesting. I was thinking it could be 27, it could be 197, it could be 1,000. How did you come up with the 495 for 97?
Yeah, and it really depends upon who your audience is. So 497 is usually what we use for B2B. If we're doing B2C, almost always it's below 100 because it's exactly what you said. I don't have to ask my spouse.
Right.
You
I
know,
don't have to
it's
think about it.
don't have to think about it. if I spend this money and it's a complete bust, nobody's going to be upset. Nobody's going to hold me accountable. Nobody's going to say, how did you spend this money? And that's
Right.
really the key, so we're doing a number of things here. One, and by the way, I'll tell you what we tell people when we're presenting an offer. So for us, we do marketing for folks. And guess what? 100% of the people that come to us have a bad marketing story in their past. And just like
I think everybody in the world has a bad marketing story in the past.
Yeah. And so they're like, I don't know, you sound like you know what you're talking about, but so did the last guy. And so what we're trying to do is get over that barrier of, how do we go in and create an experience? And that's really key. That ties into a Maya Angelou quote. People will forget what you said, they will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Yeah. And so when you're delivering the deliverables for the first time offer, that's your opportunity to make them feel differently than they did about that last person that they went with. And you bring that number down. To answer your question, it was really the question of what's the amount of money that a low-level decision maker in any organization could spend without approval. That's $500. So we made it $497. That's really it. That's the thought that went into that.
That's fantastic and brilliant. And I think that that's something that really takes the fear or risk away. As you mentioned in your intro, that there's two things that you want to take away: fear of commitment and fear of risk, right? And if you could take away the risk of it's only $500, or if you're doing B2C, it's only $97, right? It's not the end of the world for me if I lose this money tomorrow and it doesn't work. So I love that. That's really, really valuable. So let's talk about that other side of it, because what type of commitment are they getting or expecting, or offer are they expecting in exchange for that 97 or 497?
Yeah, and thank you for asking, because that is so important. When we present our offer, we tell them, once you get this, you have three choices. You can take it and implement it yourself. You can take it to someone else and have them implement it for you. Or three, if we mutually agree, we'll help you implement it. So right there, we're taking out that commitment risk. And the reality is they came to us because they don't have the skills in-house to implement it themselves. So in some ways, you're promising something that you don't have to worry that, oh, geez, I give it to them, they'll just go do it themselves. No, they came to you because you're the expert. And because you're the expert, they still need you. But it just, I don't know how that felt when you heard me saying that. If I approached you with an offer saying, look, you can take this. I'm giving you this insanely good deal on this information. And if at the end of this, you decide you want to go implement it yourself, that's perfectly okay.
Yeah. I think you just took a lot of pressure off me that it's going to be more, right? And I would assume that this 497 offer is your valuable framework of how to do something, right? Here's every step, A to Z, that you need to know about to do it. Now there's always the implementation that you spoke about that can, bring someone down. A perfect example is I'm launching a new newsletter, and I thought it would be really easy to create the newsletter, but it wasn't the newsletter. It was the email delivery system that I had to spend a week researching. There's always something else that helps the client to implement the strategy, right? And you don't have to offer them that. You're just offering them the concept or the intellectual property, correct?
That's right. Yeah, and that's it. And one of the key elements, and I'll tell you a place that people get this wrong. So let me give a quick rundown.
Sure.
It should be has to be an impulse purchase. That means coins in the cushion, the couch, and the money in the wallet. We kind of talked about that, or the B2B equivalent. It needs to deliver disproportionate value to price.
Hmm.
And we usually aim for 10x the value, not a fake 10x. We're talking legitimately, it should be worth in the ballpark of 10 times what you're charging for it. Uh, and then it should solve a problem. And that's where I really wanted to focus based on what you were asking. Because one, if it doesn't solve a problem, it's not delivering value.
Mm,
You know? And so if you're going to do an audit or an assessment, which is kind of a nice word for an audit, all you're doing is highlighting the problems they have. You're not helping them solve a problem.
right.
But here's where the magic starts coming in. When you come alongside someone and work with them and help them solve a small problem, it builds trust like you wouldn't believe. It builds it
Exactly.
fast, it builds it tall. And all of a sudden, once you get that far in the process, moving on to your high ticket core offer, you've got all that trust, it's built in. You're no longer competing on price. Anybody else that's coming in with a proposal, they are now the scary outsider that's fighting to try to get in. You
Right.
are trusted, they are scary.
Wow. I like that because plus it also, when you make that $10,000 high ticket offer to a client, you know, they're fearful of, will it work? I don't know. I don't really know you who's offering this. And so I love this first time offer experience because they get to experience you, how you work, and your frameworks and methodology that would give them the confidence that when they're ready to take the next move, they've already experienced you. And I
Yeah,
think that's really where the value I think comes in with this first time offer.
absolutely. Yeah, and it's amazing. And they feel good about it. They move forward. There's a story in my somewhat recent past that I think really, it's about how you make them feel. And the story kind of makes that point. So I think, we've talked in the green room where, about, we're actually approaching 2 years ago.
Huh?
I hobbled into the hospital. I could barely breathe. I walk up to the desk and I say, I'm having trouble breathing. And they immediately take me back, put me on oxygen, and I had COVID. That's what it was. But
Wow.
11 days later, they shot me full of morphine for some weird reason. But then they called my wife in the middle of the night and for permission to put me on the ventilator. And they told her that night I would die. They told her the
Oh
next
my
day I was going
gosh.
to die. They
Wow.
told, yeah, oh, yeah. My poor wife. Oh my goodness. When I woke up and found out what she had gone through, I was crushed. I was just
Mm.
completely crushed. Um, yeah, they at one point they drug her into a conference room, put my chart on the wall, said prognosis, multiple organ failure leading to death. And at the time, my kidneys were in failure. Uh, and
Gosh.
and they actually had her meet with hospice to plan the day they were going to pull the plug.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go through that.
So here's what's interesting for me. For 6 weeks, it was lights out. They shot me full of morphine. I wake up 6 weeks later. And in that time, something really amazing happened. When I woke up, my trust in the doctors plummeted. It had fallen through the floor, while my trust in my wife had gone through the roof. All while I was asleep. Uh, I think many people made the assumption I couldn't hear them. And and this comes back to that whole Maya Angelou quote. While my wife was speaking words of hope and life into me, the doctors were speaking something much different. And
Mm.
so when I woke up and they asked me to do something that, now with a clearer head was immensely sensible, that, yeah, I should have said yes. If the doctors came and asked, I said no. They had to go through my wife. And, she would come to me and she'd say, the doctors want you to do this. And I'd say, is it safe? And she said, yeah, yeah. And as soon as I heard from her, I would say yes. That all changed in 6 weeks. And so that's what we're
It's
talking
crazy.
about in short periods of time, based on how you make people feel. you can either create or destroy great amounts of trust.
Wow. What a story. What an impactful story that we could take. Well, first of all, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you came out of it, right?
Yeah.
That's a horrible experience for anybody to go through with a loved one, to have to make decisions and see them, not improving for 6 weeks. I mean, that's an incredibly long time. And thank goodness your wife was a good wife and said, "Yeah, come on out, honey," rather than, thank goodness. you
Yeah.
know, it could have been the other side of it, but yeah, it's a terrible ordeal. But what it taught you, the lesson that you got out of that, is how someone can improve a relationship if they truly care.
Yeah. 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 And that's, and you hit something there. Um, you got to care about your customers. You have to have deep empathy for your customers or clients. If you don't, find something else to do. Find people you love and serve them.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. That's big. That's deep. All right, so let's put all this in, let's wrap all this up in a way that any company, and I know any company can use this, whether you are a plumber going out and delivering services, unless it's an emergency call, you want to make a relationship with your customer before you go on. If you're a coach or consultant, or you're selling, professional services or anything those lines, you definitely want to utilize this kind of method of saying, how do I get someone to try me out, right? And start to experience it by solving one of their smaller problems, and get them to spend money without any risk whatsoever, right? I mean, sounds like it, you know. 500 bucks or $97 is a drop in the hat. I loved what you said. What'd you call it? Couch cushion coins change.
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Coins.
know.
Yeah. And and let me throw out a couple examples so your audience can wrap their head around it. And you mentioned plumbing or something like that. There's an HVAC company in Charlotte called Morris Jenkins. Very,
Mm-hmm.
very successful. Anybody that lives in the Charlotte area knows who Morris Jenkins is. And they ran an offer where, as you were coming out of winter into spring, they said, "Hey, you need to bring your AC back on gently." They ran this whole campaign gently. And for $89, a tech would come out, check your system, and they went through a whole list of things that they would do. I, I don't know the last time you had an HVAC person out. Last time I did, they weren't anywhere near $89. They charged me $89 to pull in my driveway.
Right.
And so they came out and they did this thing. And what they gave was peace of mind that as the sultry Charlotte summer approached, you were going to have a system that was ready to run all summer long. They didn't make money doing that. They made their money selling new systems. They used that to build the relationships that when you needed a new system, you went to them. And by the way, they were not the cheapest. They were more expensive by several $1,000s. If you were buying a
Wow.
new system, they weren't a couple $100s more. They were thousands of dollars more. And they actually saw that in the comments on the reviews. They'd say, "Well, these guys are more expensive, but I'm so happy to spend the money because they do such a good job."
Mm.
Who doesn't want customers like that? And so
Yeah.
there's an example for the service industry.
I
Um,
like that a lot, because what you're doing though is you're giving them peace of mind, and then you're the person they call in an emergency. And the last thing you want to do when you're dealing with these kind of companies is have to call them in an emergency, right? There's water leaking out. I need you to come out right now. How much is it going to cost? Or my air is not going. It's 100 degrees and I need you to come out now. That's the worst time you want to call one of those service providers. So I love how they brought themselves in a time where you don't need them, and giving you peace of mind and tweaking and fixing and repairing so that you didn't have to call them in an emergency later on. So I
yeah,
like that there's different angles on it. But yeah, I think that everybody can do something very coffee-like,
Yeah,
right out of the gate. I think
no,
it's good.
absolutely.
I think it's good. All right. So give us the flip side example, right? So you gave us the framework for a coaching kind of situation, but what would a service provider maybe find? So a service professional service provider is a CPA, an attorney, an accountant, an architect, somebody that uses their brain as their product. What kind of offer could they offer as a coffee date?
Yeah. Well, let me throw this out first because this will help frame that out. We found that really great offers have a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 5 deliverables. And
Okay.
those 3 to 5 deliverables represent 3 to 5 milestones that move them 3 to 5 steps closer to their goal. And so if you're an accountant or um, or something. We haven't worked with accountants. We found accountants have trouble grasping this concept. They feel like they're leaving money on the table. It's funny.
So so let's take a step back. So repeat the 3 to 5 again. It's 3 to 5 deliverables that move them 3 to 5 times steps closer to their problem, right?
Right, or to their goal, to where
Okay.
they
To
ultimately
their
want.
goal.
Yep,
Okay.
and let me throw out a couple other things. One of those 3 to 5 deliverables should be the product of a co-working session where they primarily contribute to that deliverable. That triggers a couple
Love it.
cognitive biases that triggers the IKEA effect and the endowment effect. But when they feel like it's their idea that's the product of that session, and you get to the end, for them to not move forward with you would require that they reject their own ideas.
Mm, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So I think a professional service like an accounting firm, something that I've done with some of my accounting firms that is offering them their clients a opportunity to come in mid-year or early parts of the year, not just at tax time, because at tax time everybody's crazy busy. I got this deadlines, you get me this, get me that. I don't have time to plan with you. But if I can plan with you some movements early on that can improve your tax situation at the end of the year or next year, right? Then it's that same kind of small deliverable that solves one of their problems that would not be a big expense during one of their off times or less busy, hectic times, that they could still offer that kind of solution. Does that fit into your model of moving? I mean, we're
It
spitballing
does.
here, but
Yeah, no. And I will tell you, these things, they look easy. And I can tell you from experience, they're a lot harder to put together than they appear. And
sure.
when we're doing a workshop with somebody, I never know how it's going to end at the beginning of the workshop. I never know what the offers. It's not like I'm going into the workshop saying, okay, here's where we're going, internally, and I'll just ask the questions to move them along. I really don't know. It's there's a lot of things that come out. But let me give you an example of the the idea is you want to hit some immediate pains. You don't want to address future pains. So as accounting, and I'll give this. Here's an example I gave. I have a buddy. I think a lot of them. Great guy, and he was talking about a new service he was going to do where you pay him $300 a month. He does your bookkeeping, and he does your tax preparation. So when tax season comes around, you don't pay him the 1,000 or 1,200 or whatever he charged to do his taxes. That $300 a month would cover it through, that makes sure everything's in order throughout the year, and it also includes getting your taxes done.
Nice.
And and he told me about this in February, and I said, "Hey, do you have the capacity for 5 new clients for this service if they showed up tomorrow?" He said, "Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to build this out." And I said, "Okay." So here's what you offer. Now, this is lacking the 3 to 5, but this is just, what came up immediately. So we're in February of this year, tax filing for businesses, March 15th. And so you go to them and you say, send out an email to anybody that's interested or anybody you talk to and say, look, we have an opening for 5 positions of this new service. But if we have an opening for 5 positions this month, and if you join this month for $300, we will do your 2022 taxes for $300 as a welcome into this program. And so, I mean, if you do the math, that's a $3,600 a year program.
Right.
And he looked at me and said, absolutely not. I said, why not? He said, well, I'm leaving money on the table. I said, no, you're getting 5 new clients. They're going to sign up for a $3,600 a year program.
They're just going to pay you for the taxes over a period of time.
Right. And he could not get past that. And so I was talking to him earlier this week.
So he couldn't, but I know there's a lot of listeners that probably could understand that. So some CPAs, you can't say all CPAs live in this little box, right?
Fair enough.
They can't see past the blinders that are up on their eyes. But there are many that could see it. And I'm sure if he offered that in December and knew that he got 3, 6, 9, $900 or $1,200 before he had to file taxes, then he'd feel a little more comfortable. But the challenge is, when you have to pay people in your service to do these things, and you can't tell your employees, hey, I'll pay you over the next 12 months for what you did this month. It's that kind of mindset. But it takes a business that's already in existence that has a cash flow coming from everywhere else, that if he were to add those 5 new clients that are going to pay him $300 a month, he would not be worried about making payroll and say, yeah, that's a good offer because now I've got an additional, 3 times 5, $1,500 a month in income coming from these group of people every month for the next 12 months.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I was talking to him earlier this week, and he was celebrating selling the very first of that new service. And I just bit my tongue, but I'm like, dude, you just missed out on 4 months of $300 a month times however many of those you wanted to sell because you were worried about leaving money on the table. And he's a dear friend. I think the world of him, but you raise a good point. The world is diverse. Not everybody, I hurt for him because I want to see him succeed. He took care of my family when I was in the hospital, and that means a lot to me. And so I was.
You've got to get people to. So everybody has limiting beliefs, right? Oh, well, this didn't work before, or that I can't see past the forest through the trees, right? And so if you can knock down those limiting beliefs, you can expand their growth. Now, I'm not a mindset coach. I don't play one on TV. I don't even blah, blah, blah. But I mean, there are these blockages that people can't see through. And folks like that, oftentimes you have to put it in their language. So let me show you a spreadsheet on how this is going to play out, right? And then he might have gone, oh, I see that, So speaking in accounting terms, he may have caught it and been able to implement it. But yeah, so I love the way that we talked about, high ticket offers and coaches and people making offers for programs that, any business can add to their bottom, their offering program. Then we talked about how a plumber could add it or an HVAC could add it. We talked about a professional service could add it. Anybody, it sounds like, could add a first time offer or an entry level offer to get them to come in to your world and start experiencing you before you make here's the bigger offer or the bigger commitment that, ultimately we all would love to see coming in on a regular basis. So I like how you spread that out, Craig. That gave us the vision of like, hey, I can do this, and make it super easy. So I love it. So we're running up on time here, but where can listeners, Craig, you've given us some great ideas. Where can listeners find out more about you and how they can create their own first time offer.
Yeah, so our website is alliesforme.com. That's ALLIES, the number 4, ME.com. And if you just add a slash profit with a plan, all one word, all lowercase, we actually have a free gift for your audience. You can go to the website and we have contact information. But if you go to that slash profit with a plan, we have 2 gifts. One is a guide on how to make first-time offers. I fumbled around for 18 months. I've made most of the mistakes that you can make in putting these together. And so I've built a guide to help you avoid some of the mistakes I've made. The other thing is we have a self-paced course, and you'll get 23 days access to that course. Now, the reason and there's a reason we're limiting it to 23 days. We're not trying to be Scrooge McDuck. We study human behavior. We study how people behave. And the one thing we know is if you sign up for a free course and I call you a year from now, you still have not gone in and used that course. We want this to change your life. We're in the business of changing lives. And so by putting that 23-day limit on it, what we see it in the analytics. People go in, they start using it, start consuming it, and start putting it to work. That's what we want. We don't want to just have something that's sitting in your course library somewhere that will never be used. And so we have those 2 things. I hope folks will, even accountants, my apologies. I love this fella. He took care of my family when I was in the hospital. I was just so disappointed that he didn't put that to work to make more money for himself. But
in hindsight, he will. He'll listen to this podcast and go, "You're right."
Yeah. So, but no, Marcia, this has been a delight.
Thank you. I love it. Wow, listeners, I hope you found a couple ideas to put into your business that will help you be more profitable. And I know stacking in an offer like this that will allow you to really get that customer to start to experience you at a no-brainer offer, right? Something that's, below the risk level financially and commitment level. It's short-term. It's just perfect. And I think that if you try to put this through and you take Craig up on his offers for his course and that guide, I know you'll be moving in the right direction. So I hope you put this into work for you. And so to offer a friendly reminder, I actually have what I thought to be a first-time offer, and it works perfectly because I was going to change my offer around and tell you, hey, find me here, let's book a coffee. But now, based on what Craig has said, my opportunity that I talked about in the beginning is perfect. And if you'd like to boost your net profit by 45% in just 30 days, think it's not possible? It is. And guess what? It's almost free, right? It fits perfectly into Craig's first-time offer and with 0 risk whatsoever. So check out my training called 30-Day Profit Booster. This quick and easy training will help you easily boost your profit, and it can be done without spending more money on marketing, additional staff, or working longer hours. So go grab the free webinar at 30dayprofitbooster.com. And Craig and I would love to hear your questions or feedback. Tell us what you're thinking about as your first-time offer that you'd like to offer your clients, and how you can, or ones that you've done that have failed and succeeded, and share those with us. We'd love to see your comments. While you're at it, subscribe. You don't want to miss future shows. And you can catch Profit with a Plan on any of your favorite podcast players. And we're looking forward to more great profitable information on next week's show. So until then, make your plans and profit with them. Thanks so much, Craig.
Thank you, Marcy.